glazes. Okay, you'll see that for each and every color, there's a few test tiles. And if you look carefully, we have one that's really white, one that's really dark. We've got some other ones in here. These are the different types of clays. So we have porcelains and dark bodies. We have the Solvate 60 that we used to use, but this one here, the gray one, is now the clay that we're using. Okay, so we want to identify those tiles as our tiles so we know what they look like. Now, if you're using a different clay, maybe you decided you want to use porcelain or something like this, you can come and see, or you use a dark body, you can come and see what the color's going to look like. So you can see that obviously the dark body glazes, or the glaze and the dark body clay will look very different. Okay, and you can see some variations all across the board. Okay, now glazing is a funny science. Okay, it has a lot to do with the fire. It has a lot to do with that fire eating oxygen and basically reducing the oxygen in our pieces to get different colors. Okay, and that's not something that we can control in the gas stove. Okay, if we can control flames, that'd be great, but we can't. So a good way to look at this is there's a range of colors, and I'm gonna be in that range of colors somewhere. Okay, but if you're like, ooh, I like that, it's gotta look like that, and you do it, you may find yourself disappointed at times because it may not come out exactly like that. Okay, it may look a little, I mean, it's not gonna come like this, okay, but you're gonna have, once again, that range. So just be open-minded about that because each firing is gonna create a different result. Okay, now, we have a few glazes here. Cotton candy.
We're looking for not food safe?
Yes, in Otto Heino's matte turquoise, those are not food safe. Okay, and this is primarily because of the ingredients in them. There may be some barium or some other fun stuff that you may or may not want to ingest. Okay, but a note on food safety. I would say that most of the semi-matte glazes and the matte glazes are questionable because the reason they're semi-matte and they're matte is because they have not a smooth surface. The light isn't reflecting off of it. It's got little dimples in it. So potentially food can get stuck in there and maybe cause problems. Now, I don't think it's a big deal, but some people do, to each their own, okay? So if you're making like plates and foodware and stuff like that, maybe go with the high gloss glazes that tend to have no dimples in the surface, therefore it makes it nice and shiny, okay? But certainly if you want to avoid getting some, you know, residual barium or something like this in your body, stay away from the ones that stay food safe.
Would they be okay for like a vase, like if you're gonna put water in it? Yeah, it's just not food safe, it's still gonna form
I'm
a
actually going to
barrier.
demo with this color. I love this
I
color.
like
It looks
that.
really
Is
great.
that new? Because I don't remember that
It's
one
been
last
here
time.
for a while.
Maybe I didn't use it because it was not food safe.
Yeah. I had a professor who, you know, they used to have lead in their glazes, and he's like, oh, I made the coffee grade. So, you know, whatever, you know. So, I guess some people care, some people don't. But for those that do, that's there for you, okay? So,
And you can tell the matte from the high gloss just by the shininess?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, Vegas red, very shiny. Light sage,
Not so much.
not so much. And then cotton candy, not at all. Right. So I brought this piece, and this I usually kind of demo how to glaze in the sink, so you can see that there's different ways to glaze. Because I can't constantly glaze this piece and erase it and do this stuff. Okay. So one thing I want you to notice is this is black glaze. This is the khaki, the khaki glaze. Okay, so you can see there's khaki, there's black, and there's an overlap right here in that triangle, and you can see that color is different. Okay, you can see that right. You can kind of see that here too. It's like a really metallic-y color. Okay, so when you use your glazes and you mix them, you may get some interesting colors, right? So for this one, it was black first, and then the khaki second. You can see the predominant color would be khaki, okay, but the color may be different if you reverse that. So you did khaki first, and then a black second, so the outer coat is black. You'd also may get a different look if you took these two glazes, mixed them up, and then applied it. Okay, so you can get from these same glazes different effects. So what some people might do is they may glaze it one color and then do a second coat with a different color. And maybe you'll see two different colors in a variation or mix in between where it's starting to blend in. Okay. So
Which is the khaki?
Top right.
is up here,
Uh-huh.
and then the matte black is right here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we do need to prep our piece. Excuse me.
I took a picture of the board last time, I got a separate picture, so when I went home, I could sort of look at it.
The first thing we want to do is rinse our piece out. And it has a couple of reasons that we do that. One is if there's any dust on here, we want to clean it. If we have dust on here and we trap it with glaze, it goes in the kiln, the dust will burn and carbon will get released. There may be bubbling effect on your glaze, it's not so clean. Okay. Two, it's really porous. So when I put it in the glaze, it's going to pick up a ton of glaze, maybe too much. So by rinsing it, not only am I washing it, I'm making it so it's not as porous and not picking up as much glaze. So we can control the glaze, not running too much. Okay. I had pieces that were like 5 years old, 10 years old when I first started back here again because I hadn't thrown for a while and they were covered with dust. So yeah, I wanted to clean that. You can see in here, this has been sitting there for like the whole session. I have some dust. Okay, so I want to get rid of that. And that's easy. All I'm going to do is rinse it off. Okay, and you'll see that this piece is already starting to dry.
Oh, wow,
Okay.
you can actually see it happening.
Yeah, it's already pretty dry. So we see that the water is absorbed in there, our piece is clean, and now we're ready to glaze. I'm gonna put this here for now. And I'm gonna show you a couple ways that you can glaze. Okay. We have these big vats here that we're gonna mix up with glaze. We can simply just dip it in, right? So you just dip it in, and maybe what you wanna do is go half or as much as you can because your hands have to touch something, right? And then you pour out the glaze. And you can see where the glaze would be, where the water is. Now, you saw how that thing absorbed all that water, okay, and then it became really dry. The same thing will happen after we apply the glaze. So after a short minute, it will be super dry. You can actually touch it without messing up the glaze, and then you can go back in and glaze the rest, okay?
You can do two different colors and it won't contaminate.
We'll talk about that in a second. Yes, you can, but there's a way not to. Okay, so when it dries, you're fine. If it's still sopping wet, it's
Yeah.
gonna get everywhere.
Right.
So just wait and then get the next color, you should be fine.
Got it.
Okay, so that's one way. You could dip it inside and then you just have one uniform color. That second dip can be a second color, right? You could also take the glaze, pour it in. Let's say you want a different color on the inside. I would kind of rotate it in here and pour it out evenly, making sure I get all the interior area. My rim may be a little dirty. I don't know what color I want that. If you want to have one color, then you can not clean it up. So I might clean up the sides here, like so, right, and get rid of all the glaze that got on the side. Or if I wanted to have the lip different color, I'd clean up the lip as well. Okay.
Where do
Now,
you pour the glaze out from inside, back in the
back
back?
there. Yeah. So imagine right now, this is all glazed on the inside. Okay. Now we want to glaze the outside. We could then, what I usually do is just put my fist in here. Okay. It carries pretty well. I'll dunk it. The water will come up. It'll go up to right here, and then I'll stop, and then I'll pull it out. Okay. And then I'll kind of sit down, let the glaze drip down. Once it's dry, I can put it back on the table or something, let go of it. Remember, the glaze in here is already dry, right? We waited, so I can put my hand in here and not mess it up, okay? Now, if I aggressively put my hand in there, I'm scratching it, yes, I can mess up the texture or the effect of the glaze on the inside. If I gently put it in, I'm fine, okay? So then, if I needed to have another layer of glaze, I might lightly dip it, and then just get that lid glazed up as well.
Does
Okay?
each dip add, like, if it's just one dip, is it less opaque? than two dips, or does that not matter?
Good question. So you'll notice that these tiles
Oh, they're double.
have like a
Yeah.
double dip. Okay, so for instance, when they make this, they actually glaze and then double dip. So the double dip is at the top, and that's what it might look like if it was thicker, and that's what it would look like if it was thinner. Okay, one dip. Now you can go three, but maybe you'll start getting some running. Okay, and you can see here that some glazes just run a lot. There was like this other green glaze, it just runs like crazy. So you can see on Ido's mat, these are the half mats, right? Right here. You see it ran down a lot. Right? Some of these a little bit more, some of them not. Okay, so you want to gauge, okay, this looks like a running glaze, right? So maybe when I glaze it, I'm not going to glaze it all the way to the bottom. Maybe I'll just go right here. Maybe I'll do a single dip and I like that color, so maybe I'll go down to here. Maybe it runs enough to cover, but that's also the part where you have to kind of just know your glazing experience comes in handy, right? Because you will have glazes that run and stick, and that's why we have the cookies. It's just part of it. And after a while, you're like, that glaze runs a lot, I don't like it, or that glaze runs a lot, so I know only to use it on the inside, right, of a bowl or a cup, because if it runs excessively, you're fine, right? And then maybe use a different glaze on the outside that doesn't run as much, okay? The more dips you have, the thicker it gets, the more likely it is to run. So you can do maybe a full dip, a half dip, and maybe a third dip, and you'll see it run down, okay? Some people like that drip. That's kind
Yeah,
of
and if
something
you
they're
don't like
looking
it?
for. If you don't like it, I'd go with like one or two,
I see.
depending on which glaze runs. which
And
glaze
can you
doesn't.
like sponge it off?
So let's say I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops, wrong color. Oh, too thick. Oh, I touched it and now it's messed up. I will rinse this piece completely off.
Oh.
Okay. Now this piece will be waterlogged. You will not be able to glaze it today. You'll probably have to wait tomorrow, maybe another day, just depending. Okay. So if you make a mistake, totally remediable. You just can't get to it that same day, most likely. Okay. So wipe it all clean. And it kind of sticks, so you'll find that you're kind of scrubbing it. Now, with some colors, I find with like the iron-based colors, this kind of color, you'll rub it clean, and it will be kind of like a reddish tint. You're like, oh, it's not coming out. Don't worry, that red tint won't really show. You could probably add on another glaze, and it won't affect. Okay, so you just want to get as much glaze as you can off. Okay. So now we have this piece completely glazed, right? We're going to put it in the kiln. We're going to put it on a cookie first, glue it on a cookie, and we'll talk about that with the actual one we glaze, and we're going to go in the kiln, right? But note that if you have glaze on the bottom, that will melt and stick to your cookie. So we must wipe the bottom clean, okay? So you recall that little like the pinky width and the trimming and all that, all those little systems I have in place, okay? That makes it so I know, for lack of a better part, that I'm being a little bit safe. If I glaze down in here, it's not gonna run all over the place. Okay, that's why I have that gap, okay? But you can see here, even though I did that, I had some glaze running, okay? It happens. And that's just your experience, that's just your time working with these glazes and the clays. Okay, there's different types of relationships. Like you'll notice that if you look here, a lot of the porcelain glazes are the porcelain pieces, and the glaze tests on it, they tend to be shinier. Okay, so porcelain has a high silica content, so it actually lends to making that glaze a little bit shinier. Okay, so if you look across here, not so much, a lot. Okay, and that's the same glaze, more than likely the same firing too. Okay, and more than likely they're like near the same place. So here's some interesting about glazing, right? If you fire it in different firings, they may not look the same. So if you're making a set of cups, and they're like, you made one cup, fired it, made another cup, fired it, made another cup, fired it, but same glazes, they may look slightly different, okay? If you have them in the same kiln, but one's at the top, and one's at the bottom, one's in the middle, whatever, they may come out different. So typically, if you have a set, you want them right next to each other, and that's how they'll more or less load them, so you get a little uniformity of that fire and how that works underneath. Okay? questions.
So how long does it take for the glaze to dry, like while we're...
You'll see.
Okay.
Now we're gonna actually do it. Okay, so this was the practical, right? Like I'm just like kind of talking about it. So now we'll actually do it. Okay? So I have chose cotton candy.
Oh.
I plan to eat out of this. And so I'm gonna look for number 44. Okay, we have a ton of glazes. We're looking for 44. Each bucket is labeled with the number and the name. Okay, so the number is for identification, so we can find it, but you really need to know the name of the glaze as well. So, my glaze, right here. I'm going to take this paddle to mix it. They also have